Joining us right now from Washington, D.C. is Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. He's got a brand new book out this week. It's called An American Son. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Did the president steal your plan on immigration? Because it sure looks like it to a lot of people.
Well, our plan was comprehensive, it was being worked on, and it was balanced. You know, in my book, one of the things I talk about is how immigration is a complicated issue. On the one hand, it is a very human issue, and we do have to have compassion for folks that find themselves in these circumstances, especially these young people. On the other hand, we have a real illegal immigration problem. And I think it's important to remind people that this is the most generous country in the world when it comes to immigration. 1 million people a year come here legally. What other country in the world does that? And what we were working on is a balance. How do you balance our compassion for these kids with the illegal immigration problem that we have? The president doesn't even try to strike a balance. But the biggest problem I have with it is that he ignores the Constitution and the Congress and shoves it down our throat when just a year ago he admitted that not only did he not have the power to do it, but that it was not wise to do it that way. It just sets the whole thing backwards.
But, Senator, here's the thing. We've been reading for the longest time, at least for the last couple of months, that you were working on a Republican version of the DREAM Act. And then yesterday you came forward and said, I can't really do what I wanted to do now. My version's dead because of what the president did on Friday. So can you connect the dots for us? What were you working on? And what do you think? Do you think word got out to the administration and that's why they acted the way they is? Just in your opinion.
Yeah, first of all, the minute I began to discuss this, the first thing they did is attack it. I mean, the majority leader, Harry Reid, wrote an op-ed in the Miami Herald attacking my idea. People on the left accused me of being in favor of apartheid, of a three-fifths compromise, of second-class citizen. The New York Times, which is now celebrating what the presidents did, described what I was talking about, which is similar, as a dream act without a dream. Now, of course, he did it, so it's a fantastic idea according to them. So there's where hypocrisy lies. Now, let me tell you the problem. The problem is that with so many issues confronting this country, a lot of my colleagues would say to me, well, why do we do this now? Why can't this wait? And I would argue, well, because these young kids want to start school in September. Now they're going to say, you see, there is no urgency. It's being taken care of. Plus, it poisons the well by injecting election year politics into this issue, which should be a non-political issue. It makes it harder to kind of find that balanced, bipartisan approach to this solution. He's doing this as an election year stunt as much as anything else, and people see through it.
Right. So, Senator, given that the president preempted your plan, where do Republicans go now on immigration?
Well, I think our idea continues to be worked on. The timing of it is what's in question now. But I think where we need to be is three things. Number one, we need to remind everybody that America is very generous as it is when it comes to legal immigration. I mean, there are 50 million people waiting to come to this country legally. What do we tell them? Come illegally, it's cheaper and faster. On the other hand, and I discuss all of this in my book because it's not a black or white issue. You know, we do have compassion for these young kids. I mean, if you're 5 years old, your parents bring you here, you grow up here your entire life, you're the valedictorian of your school, and we're going to deport you, it doesn't feel right. But we have to address that in a humanitarian way, but we have to do it in a way that doesn't encourage or reward illegal immigration in the future. And that's why we have a Congress. As inefficient as it may be, as frustrated as I may get with the process, if we lose these constitutional principles, I mean, what do we have then? We're no different than the rest of the world. And no issue is that important for us to ignore the Constitution.
Senator, your book is excellent, and it tells the story, really, of an American story. This is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to accomplish, and it's not all going to be smooth. For example, I always thought that you were pretty confident about beating then-Governor Crist for the seat. But for a while, you even doubted that this was possible, that it was going to go your way, right?
Yeah, everything I knew about politics said I would lose. I got discouraged. People get discouraged all the time. But I relied on my faith and my family, particularly my wife, who's not really a big fan of politics per se, but who believed that we were doing it for the right reasons. And are you in it to win, or are you in it to make a difference? If you're in it to make a difference, it doesn't matter what the odds are. And I'm grateful to her for that. And I'm grateful for that kind of race, because all I had was my principles early on in this race, and certainly I think that's made me a better senator.
And Senator, in your book, you also talk about illegal immigration, and not only do you have compassion for the children who are brought here against, through no fault of their own, but for the parents. And you say that if you were in that situation, if you lived in a country, say Mexico, where you couldn't work or afford to feed your children, yes, you too would cross the border illegally and do whatever it takes to feed your children. Do you think that Mitt Romney and other Republicans understand that sort of sentiment?
Well, I think everyone does. I mean, if your kids are starving, you're telling me you won't do virtually anything to bring food for them and to provide for them? I think the answer is yes. As parents, we'll do anything for our kids. But as a country, we've always recognized that. That's why 1 million people a year get to immigrate here legally. What other country in the world does what we do? Now, and we want to continue to be that country, but it has to be through a system of legal immigration that works. And Mitt Romney's in favor of a system of legal immigration that works. I don't think we have to make any apologies for our generosity on legal immigration. We have to recognize the human element of it, but as policymakers, we also have an obligation to this country, and that's a balancing act that I hope Republicans will lead on. I believe we are. I believe we're starting to, for sure.
Senator, yesterday, about right now, we saw a news flash from ABC that you were not being vetted for vice president on the Mitt Romney ticket, and then late in the day, Mitt Romney himself came out and said this.
There are only two people in this country who know who are being vetted and who are not. And that's Beth Myers and myself. And I know Beth well. She doesn't talk to anybody. The story was entirely false. Marco Rubio is being thoroughly vetted as part of our process.
Okay, so there you go. I'm sure this is the #1 thing that is driving you crazy because as you promote your book, everybody's asking you about it. What do you want to say about it?
Well, it's part of the process, and that, you know, it comes with the territory, and that's fine. I would tell you two things. Number one, I don't discuss the process that Governor Romney's undergoing and that Governor Romney's conducting. I think he deserves the space to conduct that in the most professional way possible. But I do have a new book out.
You do? And in the book, don't you talk about the fact that people look, he's a U.S. Senator, but he's still paying off his student loans.
I am. And if I sell enough books, thanks to you guys, I may be able to pay it off this year.
Absolutely.